We were aware that we were aiding and abetting.
We all knew that, or sensed, it was probably illegal in Canada to have an assisted death. But it was absolutely not a concern at all. It was all about, she needed this, she wanted this, I'll help her do this.
I'm Lee Carter.
And I'm Price Carter, or Kay Carter's daughter and son.
She had been ill with spinal stenosis for a couple of years, and it got where she was really debilitated. She said to me, I want to ask you if you would take me overseas so that I could die with dignity. She wore diapers. It was just an existence that she said, I've had a full life, she said, and I'm ready to go. She was aware that what we were doing was illegal, and that's why for the 6 months that I worked on this, it was a very hush-hush, and we couldn't, and that was really a shame because we couldn't tell people and couldn't share with outside of our family.
Palliative care can take care of most things, but it can't give you control. And that, in fact, is what the story of Sue Rodriguez is all about. Sue Rodriguez did have palliative care, and it was good palliative care. My name is Sandra Martin, and I'm the author of A Good Death.
If I cannot give consent to my own death, whose body is this? Who owns my life?
Back in the early 90s, when Sue Rodriguez was about 40, was suffering from ALS, nobody was publicly asking for the right to die. I mean, there were some doctors who were helping patients along, but it was the doctor's decision. It wasn't the patient's choice. And I think that that's a key issue in this story.
Somehow, some way, I'll deal with my future as it comes along.
Sue Rodriguez wanted to control her life and her death. And the problem for Sue Rodriguez was that she could die before she wanted to die, if she was willing to die by her own hand. But if she was going to wait until life was no longer tolerable for her, she was going to be so disabled, she wasn't going to be able to kill herself. She was going to need help. And that's why she went to the Supreme Court of Canada to ask for a medically assisted death.
You should have the right to control what happens to your body in the final stages of your life.
Are you not opening the door very wide to abuse, not out of bad faith, but abuse by people who want to do good?
Surely the state should not have the right to impinge upon the terminal stages of a mentally competent but physically handicapped person's life, denying them the option of maintaining dignity when an able-bodied patient is able to make that choice. Thank you very much, my lords and ladies.
Thank you, Mr. Considine.
Rodriguez was a product of his time, and so was Carter. And the time was different for a whole bunch of reasons. My name is Joseph Arve. I was lead counsel in the case of Carter versus Canada, which is the case dealing with physician-assisted dying. The decision in Rodriguez was to uphold the constitutional validity of the section of the criminal code that made it a crime for anyone to assist someone with his or her death. I think the Supreme Court of Canada at that time might have thought that it would have been going much further than a court should go.
I was aware we were aiding and abetting, but it didn't influence my work in getting her there. You make an application to Dignitas, and then when they take you, they call it the green light. And the day that we got the green light, I phoned her and said, Katie, we've got the green light. It meant, yes, we can go to Switzerland. Then we were able to start to make airplane reservations and plans, and how are we going to do this, and how are we going to get her out of the care facility. A departure out of Vancouver was really an experience because all of her grandchildren and my sisters and brothers were at the airport saying goodbye to her. They're crying, they're sad. This is the last time they're going to see Grandma. We kind of parted from them on our way down to the gate, and my mom said to Hollis, my husband, I want this to be fun. I want this to be a lark. I want us to have fun on this journey.
Erica and Horst, a husband-wife team, were there. Erica kneels down, puts her hands on her lap, and she says, Kate, I'm so glad to meet you. I'm just so glad to meet you. And Kate, I'm so glad to meet you too. She was asked countless times, Kay, are you sure this is what you want to do? You realize that this, if you just do this and you do it, you will be dead. And her constant refrain was, I, Kay Carter, wish to die with dignity.
She said, I've come halfway around the world. Let's get started.
If I was a director, I could not have scripted this whole process any better. Erica leans down and she puts her hands on her knees and she says, Kay, when you drink this, you will die. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And she says, I, Kay Carter, wish to die with dignity. Okay. All right then. And what did she say? What did Erica say?
I'll meet you on the other side.
I'll meet you on the other side. Wait for me. I'll meet you on the other side. So she has the pentobarbital. Mom takes it. She drinks it.
She fell asleep.
She fell asleep.
She fell asleep in our arms.
We're just, Mom, we love you so much, and our life has been great. Thank you. And more stories, more talking to her, and after about 15 minutes, and she's lying in the bed, and her arms are sort of like this around her, Horst came over and just touched her like this.
I think she's gone.
I think she's gone. And then, in a piece of beautiful symmetry, Erica opens the doors, and the curtains billow
There was
out.
French doors on the other side of the room, and they were draped with these big white drapes. And so she walked across the room, and she opened these French doors, and the drapes flew out the window. And she said, let her spirit fly. I was approached by BC Civil Liberties, and they asked my husband and I if we would talk to them about being plaintiffs in this case. And both of us went, of course we will. Why would we do that? Oh, it's just continuing what she had always wanted, that Canadians should have a choice in how they die.
I believe that public opinion has shifted, that there was now a groundswell of support for physician-assisted dying that didn't exist back in 1992 or 4, whenever Rodriguez was decided. It became apparent that many people had to choose between committing suicide or asking family or friends to assist them with their death when they still were enjoying their life. Because if they waited too long to the point where life no longer had any value for them, or living was worse than death, then it would be too late.
So they were being denied their own lives, the freedom to live their own lives as long as they wanted. And that was a very persuasive argument.
We were able to establish that this law actually contributed to death. This law not only deprived people of their liberty and security of the person, but deprived them of their life. The BC Supreme Court decision, the trial of decision, came down on June 15th, 2012. So we were locked in a room for 2 hours reading this massive decision. It was like 400 pages long. And needless to say, we were ecstatic with the outcome. We knew this was just step one in a 3-step dance. We knew that the government would appeal to the Court of Appeal. We were obviously disappointed in the decision of the BC Court of Appeal. When we started this case, we knew that it wasn't going to be over until we got to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Lee Carter et al. Versus Attorney General of Canada, and Lee Carter et al. Versus Attorney General of Canada et al. Again.
There was a huge sea change between Rodriguez in the early 90s and Carter in, 20 years later.
This is a momentous occasion. This case quite simply concerns matters of life and death. It may require the court even to give...
Other things were happening around the world. The Netherlands passed its euthanasia law in 2002. Oregon passed its form of assisted dying in 94, but it really came into being in 97. There was a movement in Quebec that was doctor-led. Where physician-assisted dying came into play was societies that were tolerant, societies that were progressive.
We say that the present law that makes it a crime for such persons, irrespective of their circumstances, to seek the assistance of a physician to hasten their death is unconstitutional. And we also say that the law that denies those who are so physically disabled that they are unable to end their lives without assistance, as can any able-bodied person, violates the equality rights of the Charter.
The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled in favor of doctor-assisted suicide for Canadians who are mentally competent but suffering what it termed irremediable illness. In a unanimous decision today, the judges ruled the criminal code provisions banning assisted There was extensive reaction to today's Supreme Court ruling.
The Supreme Court of Canada confirmed that seriously and incurably ill Canadians have the constitutional right to choose physician assistance in dying.
This is a momentous day, a historic day, a day that I think we as Canadians can celebrate. We now have...
Now we knew we won. It was over, and we had accomplished what we set out to accomplish.
And we are absolutely overjoyed by the court's ruling today. This is a tremendous victory for human rights and for compassion at the end of life. What this decision
That's the only time I've ever seen all the lawyers weeping. They were so overjoyed. They came in the room, there was tears streaming down their eyes, and Josh said, "We won. We won everything. It was unanimous.
We're standing today in memory of Gloria Taylor. We're standing today in memory of Kay Carter.
Today, with the help of BC Civil Liberties Association, her journey is complete with the Supreme Court of Canada decision granting Canadians the rights that she was denied.
Very disappointed in today's ruling. We find that this decision is the most destructive and least restrictive option in the world right now. I fear a free-for-all. I fear that it will eventually devolve into pressure for disabled people to end their lives if they're not already there.
The Supreme Court of Canada indicated that any law should allow an adult who is competent, who voluntarily seeks the assistance of a physician in dying, should have that right so long as that person has a grievous and irremediable illness. Full stop.
The court allowed Parliament and the provincial legislatures 12 months to enact new legislation.
We intend to take the time to thoughtfully review this very important decision. There is a wide and obviously very emotional range of perspectives on this issue.
Generation will come that looks back at ours with horror and disbelief if we adopt this so-called solution to suffering.
The bill has been introduced because of a specific requirement of the government to respond to a decision of the Supreme Court.
It limits who is eligible to a narrower class of suffering people than the class who won a unanimous decision in the Supreme Court of Canada in Carter. It doesn't comply with the Carter case, and it doesn't comply with the Charter.
The emphasis had switched from what the Supreme Court was saying, which was about suffering that is intolerable to the patient, suffering that is grievous and irremediable. It had changed from that to a reasonably foreseeable natural death.
Not more than one further sitting day shall be allotted to the consideration of the report stage.
Free and open debate on matters of moral conscience as they relate to end-of-life ethical matters is being curtailed.
There's nothing in the Carter decision that talks about proximity to death.
With great respect, Madam Justice, you make a political answer to a legal question.
I am confident that Bill C-14, as originally drafted and presented in this place, is constitutional.
The Liberal government has crafted Bill C-14 legislation to be so restrictive that my own mother would be turned away.
We believe that the law is actually contrary to the Carter decision, does not respect the decision of the Supreme Court of Canada, and is unconstitutional. And we have started yet another lawsuit challenging that law.
You don't have rights unless you make choices and take responsibility for them. And I think that a good death is our last human right.
She would never have known that she would be responsible.
Imagine what she'd say now, how she'd feel.
Yeah, she'd just smile right now.
for me, it was a gift. And I would ask, people would ask me later, and I'd say, I was there for the birth of my children and for the death of my mother, and both were equally moving experiences.
She'd be very proud of where her journey has ultimately taken us all, taken us Canadians.